primarily I've been working with men in their relationships, and I can see a lot of them feel disempowered in their relationship. They've been getting a lot, all kinds of messages for most of their life, frankly, but even, specifically in the last, 10 years with Me Too and, the force of feminism and, the accusations of toxic masculinity, all of that. There's just been a lot of shaming, and everything that's wrong with the world, wrong with the culture, has to do with men.
Thanks for your patience this morning. I amaze myself with my genius sometimes. I look at things that I pre-plan and create. I'm working out time differences, and then I fool myself into thinking that, I'm working on Australian time, not Mexico or something like that. So it's
Yeah,
great.
I've made the same mistake. The time zone stuff is tricky.
Yeah, it is, man. And the thing that baffles me is how many times I fall for it. I'm
Yeah,
just making this same mistake over and over again. I don't know what's wrong, but anyway, we're here. You're here. It's great to see you.
good to see you too.
What's going on in your life?
Well, we just moved back, my wife and I, from Mexico. So we landed in Austin, Texas about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, good
And
timing.
we had a great time in Mexico, but yeah, we just got a little homesick.
Mm.
And I guess it was a little, yeah, I felt isolated. So it's good to be back with some community. We know a lot of people here and a lot of friends. And so we've already, had people over, and it's just, yeah, socially, it's much better.
Yeah, you don't realize how much difference it makes when you've got all your network and the people that you've established, your friendships and relationships over the years, and just to have that sense of community, it means a lot. Hey, like it's just such a big factor.
Yeah, and being away from it really put into perspective just how important it is, and which I'm grateful for.
Mm. Yeah, a lot of people I think would fall in the same boat. There's a few people that I know that can be isolated and just sort of go, they're sort of nomadic in a sense, they can just go wherever they want and they don't seem to be phased by the fact that they're just not attached to anything or anyone or any place. But I certainly think most people would fall in this camp of I need my familiar surroundings and the community aspect of it and making sure that they kind of have that part of their soul that's sort of always nourished with the right people, of course. I mean,
Yeah,
we can't choose our family sometimes or most of the time. So there's certain people that we maybe want to be another state away or a different country away from, but we can't. But that's like I said, that sense of community is a huge thing.
it really is. I've been one of those people who've traveled around a lot, been somewhat nomadic, and moved from Toronto to LA, and then moved out to Idlewild, which was a mountain town. Came out to Austin for 3.5 years. I knew some people, but made a lot of new friends, and then packed up and went to Mexico for a year and a half, and now we're back in Austin. So I have a bit of both, but I don't, for some reason at this point in my life, it does feel like there's a grounding and a settling down that I was going to say I need to do, which I think is true, but also I want to do it. And and Austin is a good place for that. It's a great town. There's a lot of good people here, a lot of people doing interesting things, a lot of good energy, and just Texas in general is
Mm.
a very interesting place.
I don't know if it's just you mentioning that it sort of pops up a couple of little things that I don't know who else I've listened to that's kind of said the same thing. Is there truth in that there's a lot of people like getting to Texas and particularly Austin and for various reasons in terms of the way that I don't know, maybe political that it's run and like people are fleeing other states, right? Because they're kind of got like tyrannical governors or they're sort of whatever on a socioeconomic level, things are turning to shit. So everyone's like, I'm fleeing to a greener pasture sort of thing. Is that true or not?
That's very true. People are going to Austin and Miami and Nashville, Tennessee, from California, I think primarily New York,
Yeah.
because of what's happening there politically, and
Yeah, sure.
socioeconomically. So it just crossed a line for a lot of people, and it does feel like, I don't know how it feels in Australia, but right now in the United States, it does feel pretty chaotic, a lot of uncertainty, and that somehow this powder keg that we've been sitting on
Mm.
is about to blow. And I think people are looking for safe places to go. And Austin feels like, a relatively safe place. It's sort of a purple city, meaning it's certainly, I guess, a blue city. It's liberal in some sense, but it's in the middle of Texas, which is pretty red.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Texans have they have a philosophy and a way of being. They're very kind, very nice, but there is an ethos of self responsibility and self reliance, and there's a strong religious Christian element here that more people than you think are involved in.
Mm.
I like it. I like Texas. I like Austin. There's a lot of positivity here and a lot of youth,
Yeah,
and it's just nice to be in an environment where people are still optimistic, hopeful, building things, dreaming, and also a lot of focus on what we talked about on community and connection and
sure.
supporting each other. So it's great.
Yeah, that is great. Look, it would be interesting to compare notes because Australia it's just such a huge continent. Like, I don't know how long it takes for you to get from, say, Austin to whatever the next state is. But I can tell you in Australia, like to get from one end of, for example, New South Wales and to get to the other end of like Queensland, for example, will take 2 days. So
Okay.
like it's just a massive area. Like I can travel sort of 11 hours or 10, 8, 9, 10 hours north or south of me and still be in the same state. So it's just like,
Yeah. Well,
if I want to
Texas is
escape, I just go to,
almost like that. Texas.
is it
When
really?
I drove out here from LA, yeah, I stayed the night in El Paso, Texas, which is right on the border of Texas and New Mexico, and it was 9 hours
Yeah,
from El
okay.
Paso, Texas, to Austin, and then it's probably another six to get all the way across the state.
Yeah,
Texas
so
is
it sounds similar.
huge. Yeah, yeah. Not all the states are that large. There's a lot of smaller states, but like California, you drive north from San Diego, you're in California. You're 10 hours till you get into maybe more into Oregon.
Got it.
So it's yeah. There's some big places.
Yeah. Yeah, Australia is, I don't know if I'm just in an echo chamber of how people are thinking at the moment, but obviously we've got the same similar kind of in terms of a political stance, we've got Liberal and Labor, and then there's really a kind of no confidence on either side. Like we don't have a political party for those that are kind of looking for the type of leadership and direction that we want our country to go in. It seems to me that the sentiment is that we don't have any confidence in any party, and so people are quite disillusioned as to what to do with themselves and how to move forward
Hmm.
politically because we've just got a fucking dick as a prime minister and a lot of them just don't. We've almost got the Australian version of Biden, right? So it's just yeah, we've just got an absolute puppet over here, and I think a lot of people that have the ability to move are probably moving out of the country. I don't think they're moving to any one particular state. I think they're probably going to Mexico or to UAE, or they're going to Bali or to Thailand or
Yeah.
Indonesia or somewhere else where they can maybe be a little bit more protected from. that sort of political stance, or maybe they can buy themselves time in terms of whatever digital ID, CBDCs, all that kind of stuff. So when people are thinking along those lines, I think they're just getting out of town, and I think there is a trend to like a mass exodus. People just leaving the country.
Yeah, I think that's happening in a lot of places. Certainly happening in Canada. It's happening, and it's happening in the U.S. as well. And I talk to people who have the means, who've been gathering passports, and Dubai is a spot, Singapore, Mexico. Like people are, there's an exit strategy because I don't think anyone really knows what's going on, and the leadership it's a little scary what's being proposed and how they're proposing it, and the demonization of the opposition. And yeah, it's a clamp down on freedom, it seems like to me, and it seems obvious. And these are the cycles of history, and hopefully we'll come out the other side of it eventually.
Yeah, I think we
But
will.
it is a little unnerving, a little scary right now.
Mm. When with relation to, say, for example, your ethos on coaching and teaching and the things that you're doing in terms of work wise, like is this sort of direction, leadership, masculinity, is that a topic that's coming up a lot in terms of maybe men, for example, not feeling like they have a place, or a sense of direction or purpose or meaning, or like what can they do to affect change? Is that something that sort of comes up more now than ever, or is that just a regular thing amongst men?
I think I well, I think now more than ever, because there's a lot of confusion. I think a lot of men are feeling helpless. I think the relationship landscape is confusing for men, and the society has become feminized, and I think, and the feminine values have taken hold, and so the primal masculine instinct, they've been asked to suppress it, and I don't think they're, in which they're doing and thinking that's good. But I'm preaching is yeah, strong masculinity, leadership, assertion, grounded, compassionate, but men lead, and I think this whole situation we're in is only going to be resolved if men begin to take more leadership and assert themselves.
Mm.
Because what's happening is in the United States, in Australia, in Canada, and in the West, I think it's a little bit scary. And if men, like, I mean, what's happened in the UK is it's just crazy to me. And it just seems like it's just a matter of time before the young men rise up and say, like, fuck this, I've had enough.
Yeah, for sure.
And I mean, what else are you going to do? Well, that's what I would be doing. I mean, what else is there? Your country's essentially being invaded, and the leadership, the political leadership, is allowing it to happen. It seems to me at a certain point, there's going to be a kind of desperation,
Mm.
and there's no other solution to it. So I don't see how we're escaping some kind of civil war situation in Europe, and I think ultimately in the United States. I don't know if it'll happen in Australia. I don't know about Canada, but yeah, like I said before, I think we're sitting on a powder keg it's going to blow eventually. So I'm not teaching men to become radical jihadists, but but just in their own lives, right? Like you control what you can control, and primarily I've been working with men in their relationships, and I can see a lot of them feel disempowered in their relationship. They've
Sure.
been getting a lot, all kinds of messages for most of their life, frankly, but even specifically in the last 10 years with Me Too, and the force of feminism, and the accusations of toxic masculinity, all of that. There's just been a lot of shaming, and everything that's wrong with the world, wrong with the culture, has to do with men, and that's all bullshit. And it's not that men, men can be better, and men have made mistakes, but the idea that all the blame has been put on men is ridiculous. So, but challenging that and standing tall means you're going to have to, and I know this personally, you're going to have a lot of people coming at you, a lot of people screaming at you, telling you're a misogynist, whatever. And, you have to build up the strength to be able to tolerate that kind of insanity.
Mm. It's when you're talking as you're talking, I'm thinking about some of the things that have just come to light just recently, and it is, I don't know. I think for me personally, I don't see a lot of it. I'm not sure if I'm shielding myself from that feminist sort of movement or that toxic masculinity, all the rest of it, or whether I'm
Hmm.
just in a nice little sort of bubble at the moment where I don't experience it that much. But you did spark a memory, and it only happened like just a few days ago where I saw someone in a group post a meme that kind of just says that it's never been about us and them, like men versus women. It's just
Hmm.
always been men have been always the hierarchy, the tyrannical. They've always controlled, and it's just that's the way it's always been. And I just made the comment like, perhaps you might want to challenge your belief systems. There's a really good book called The Myth of Male Power. Maybe that would be something that you could look at. But yeah, I think those old views are certainly still obviously still prevalent, and I think a lot of men, I don't know, you might chime in here, just feel like in the absence of standing their ground and maybe affirming their position in an articulate way instead of yelling, for example, or being
Yeah.
aggressive, like that sort of thing, then perhaps they're just acquiescing and they're just kind of like, I don't want to stick my head on the chopping block because in a corporate setting, for example, like you and I have
Yeah.
the ability to have the freedom to kind of like say what we want, really,
Yeah.
because I'm not in a boardroom. No one's telling me to fucking be, you know, um, politically correct. I have the freedom to sort of do and say what I like for the most
Hmm.
part.
Hmm. Yeah, it's unfortunate. A lot of men are in situations where they have to kind of hold their tongue, and maybe even they've been brainwashed. Like they're not even aware of how subjugated they've been and how false these arguments are. Like just this argument of
Mm.
like the patriarchy is an oppressive force, and we have to smash the patriarchy. It's
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like that's just complete nonsense, right?
I was one of those people though, David. Like I
Mm-hmm.
not too long ago was very much on board with equality and that sort of movement, equal pay and looking at the evidence that suggested that men
Yeah.
were the oppressors, and I certainly bought into that hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah, no, I did too, and but it's a reductionist argument, right? And it doesn't really hold up when you really look at the facts and you really look at like human nature. Men and women are they are equal. Like there's no denying that. And you talk to men on an individual level, and do you feel like you have power over women? Like
Sure.
most of them don't feel that way. They feel like the woman has the power,
Correct.
right? So the accusation belies their own experience. And that's certainly how it felt for me. And I understand where that argument comes from. Um, but I just think it's nature, right? Men lead. It's just the masculine leads in the relationship and in the world, and there's no right or wrong to it. It's just how it works, I think. Um, and they're leading. They should be. What I'm teaching is that you lead in service of the woman and the family and the community. So leadership is not dominance. Leadership is service. And if you reframe it that way, and it's a burden that you have to take on, in some way you have to subjugate your own desires and needs for the good of the whole, and that's what it means to lead. I think that's what great leaders are. So that's what I'm teaching. And I think when you frame it that way, it takes on a different, like the idea of the patriarchy takes on a different tone. I
Mm.
understand people define it in all kinds of ways, but that's also what's going on. Is just defining terms and words in particular kind of ways, in academic ways, and it creates this whole framework that they use to frame the conversation, and it's a kind of manipulation tactic as far as I'm concerned. It's very, like I said, and online it's very hard, but I know for me, if I comment on something, some video that pops up in my feed, about we need to smash the patriarchy, and even if my comment, because sometimes it will be provocative, so if I'm being provocative and I can expect
Sure.
a strong reaction, but even if I'm stating something simply, it's a barrage of people just attacking me. So I know that there's been propaganda, and that people are actually not willing to have the conversation. And so that's like a little bit disconcerting. And I just think that's the place we're in, whether you're talking about the dynamic between men and women, whether you're talking about the dynamic between left and right, whether you're talking about capitalism versus socialism.
Mm.
There's, I think, small groups of people that are having the real conversations. But for the most part, there's no honest conversations being had about this.
Yeah, really. I guess not as much openly, would you agree? Or do you think that these conversations are being having had internally, like they're having been had privately? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think when I talk to people one on one, individually, it's a lot easier to create some kind of nuance. But that's the problem. People's opinions get formed online, and listen, we're tribal, and people are afraid right now,
Mm.
and because of the kind of chaos in the world and the uncertainty. So people are going to conform to their tribe, and we just know this about human nature, that everybody suffers from confirmation bias and cognitive dissonance. So it's like, once you have an idea in your head, it's very hard to get that idea out of your head, and because your identity becomes attached to it. But not only that, like if you share, your whole group, your in group all shares the same idea, you're probably not going to let yourself challenge that idea, because it actually threatens the connection you have with the tribe. And on a primal level, a threat to your connection to your in group is really a threat to your life.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of internal pressure to kind of stay the line and not go outside of it, not to challenge what it is you believe. It becomes dogmatic, to me, that's exactly what the left has become. It's a dogmatic religion, secular religion, like promoting ideas that are conceptual but actually defy nature.
Mm. Yeah, look, I think to circle back on a few comments that you made, I think my personal opinion is that I think men and women, I think women are the more dominant species, or at least they're more special because they can give birth. Like I think that's a superpower, right?
But what does it
So
mean more special? Like that like we can't, like, I guess my point is that you can't have one without the other. It's like yin and yang. It's like the
I agree
moon,
with
the
that.
sun. Like they all exist together. And like any discussion of separation between the two is a kind of illusion, right? Like you cannot actually separate man from woman. You can't, like, and look at them individually. They're linked, like they're one and the same. As soon as we start like separating, it's like and I don't think you can have a situation where one has power over the other. I don't think that's
Mm.
real. I don't think that's possible. I think it's just distortion. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah, I do. I guess, and I do agree in part. I think when I listen to myself out loud, it's just like that ability to procreate, and I know that you need a man in order to do that. Like,
Yeah.
but I just think that that ability is certainly, it seems to me like it's a superpower on the woman's side, and I think it can be appreciated that men and women are essentially equal, but we're not the same, and I think that
Yeah.
that's maybe the delusion that a lot of people come to, is like we're very much different, and we sort of exist in our own lanes, but then we complement each other. And I think that part of it is certainly washed away when it comes to um, this hierarchy and or the patriarchy that they talk
Yeah.
about in terms of all those sorts of things. Well, I think I'm interested to hear your point of view in terms of how do men respond and react in the midst of feeling like they are being suppressed, because women talk about, particularly the feminist movement, talk about the patriarchy and being oppressed. However, that by very nature of, I guess, maybe shoving down your throat that you are the oppressor, it then swings the pendulum to the woman being the oppressor, and then you
Yeah.
can't see anything
The
because
victim
you're.
becomes the perpetrator. That's how it works.
That's exactly right. So it kind
Yeah,
of
but
makes
there's
more
no
sense.
victims. There's no women aren't victims. That's the illusion. Like this is all a co-creation. And the quote unquote patriarchy as they discuss it, it's just a function of evolution. It's like
Mm,
men evolved to be in leadership so that we could all survive. Like it wasn't some plot men got together and it's like, okay, we're gonna oppress women so we
sure.
can stay on top. Like for most of civilization, we were just trying to survive. People were just trying to get by. Like people forget, like this idea that all the abundance that we now have in the West, like all the safety, all the security,
Hmm.
is brand new. Like this didn't exist 150 years ago.
Yeah.
It only existed in the with the real elites, but most people were just peasants trying to get by. So the idea that there was some kind of like intense gender politics going on, people were just trying to get by, and this stuff wasn't even really discussed. So I think we've lost touch with reality. I think there's a lot of individual resentment that people have, and they're angry about life. They're angry that they're not, getting what they want in this capitalist system. They need a place to put it. They need a place. They need somebody or something to blame for their problem. And so there is a group of feminists, and there's men involved in that too who are unhappy, and they're going to they've created this argument, which is it's a persuasive argument on the surface. If you dig down, it doesn't hold up, but that's that essentially underneath it, it's really about gaining control. It's all about power. And you could argue that feminism at a deeper level is really just intersexual competition, which is women who are lower on the hierarchy. It's their way of trying to shame and control men so that they can have more access to higher status men for reproduction, because you don't see a lot of supermodels that are feminists. And so, you really dig down on this, there's a lot more going on than just the surface arguments. And, my general strategy or philosophy, whether I'm dealing with my own psyche, whether I'm in a conversation with another person about something, or whether, whatever the conversations are going on culturally, the stories are all bullshit. The narratives are bullshit. The things that people are talking about, it's all like a facade, right? It's just language used to manipulate. There's a whole other world going on underneath, that is influenced by psychology, is influenced by unconscious emotional baggage, that is influenced by evolutionary drives. And that really is what's at the heart of all of this. And I think when you look at it that way, it takes the edge off it, and it
Mm.
stops this kind of madness of these cyclical arguments that you see online, that you see in these debates, that are really meaningless because they're just arguing over the meaning of words.
So
Really,
true.
yeah,
I think that this is exacerbated by the state of affairs at the moment, meaning like I don't know what the stats are, maybe but like the amount of people that are single at the moment seems to be an ever-growing trend. The
yeah,
amount of women that are coming to the conclusion that they're not going to have children. So
mm-hmm.
there's kind of a lot of factors that are maybe contributing to a belief system that is untrue. Does that make
Yeah,
sense? So you like
yeah,
I hear men say, And I can see this even through my kids through social media. What they're hearing is like, all women at the end of the day are going to break your heart, right? Or they,
Hmm.
they they want something out of you because they will see, for example, I don't know, say a famous footballer or whatever it may be, and they're like, this guy had everything, and his missus still, cheated on him with another guy that was more successful, or something like that. So there's sort of there seems to be many facets of relationship that are working against men and women uniting and kind of dispelling a lot of those myths and rumors and propaganda really that kind of
Yeah,
is untrue. But the way that the world's headed, because we've got so many people reverting to porn or to online dating or just to having an AI girlfriend, like whatever that may be,
sure.
it's still more division and more separation. You with me?
Absolutely. I mean, it's obviously multi-factored. What I'm aware that there's a lot of research showing that this is typical of an empire in decline. If we look, I mean, the United States is a kind of empire, but you could really put the whole West in that category. And things like androgyny and lack of sexual polarity and the society stops having children. That is a typical pattern of a culture in decline, and that cultures go through cycles, 250-year cycles of up and down. And we are at literally America. I think our 250th anniversary is like next year or this year. So we're right on target. So
Right on that.
this idea that America is, this is the fall of the American empire is I don't think is hyperbole. I mean, if you look at the research that Ray Dalio has done, we're perfectly on track for that. So there are, and why does that happen? Why do these cycles happen? I don't think anybody really understands that. We just know that these cycles exist, or the cycle of the fourth turning. I don't know if you're familiar with that book, but that we go through these 80-year cycles, 4 20-year periods, and we're currently in the fourth turning of an 80-year cycle, the last 20-year cycle, and we don't know exactly where we are in it, but we're definitely in the middle of it, and that is like mass upheaval, often war and strife. So there's things going, whether it's all written in the stars, God's will, I don't know. So
Sure.
but I think it's important to acknowledge that, because it takes a little bit of the charge off it. Meaning, it's easy to point the finger at, like, oh, these people are saying that this is subversive. It's women's fault, it's men's fault, it's academics' fault, it's religion's fault, it's left wing radicals' fault. Like, yeah, and you can have the argument on that level, and there's a lot to say about that, but there's something, it seems like, that bigger is going on, and it's disturbing, it's sad, but I guess it's a function of human nature and the life cycle of cultures.
Mhm.
And on another level, yeah, I think the proliferation of pornography can't help. Social media can't help, where every single person can, like, voice their opinion, and it's in a non-personal way. I mean, I'm having a conversation with you. It's like, it's personal conversation, but if we're online and anonymous, or like, I can't gauge your reaction, or I have no responsibility. It's
Mm.
very easy for people to just discharge their resentment and anger in a comment, because there's nothing at stake, right? There's no real relationship. It's depersonalized,
Sure.
and I think that causes a lot of people to have a skewed version of, like, what's actually going on out there and who people really are. And then I think, just the I guess there is something, I think, subversive happening. Like, I do believe on one level that there is a spiritual war. Like, I believe that there are, for lack of a better term, demonic spiritual forces
Mhm.
that is intention is to subvert, and to distort reality and to upset the natural order. I think good versus evil is real, and I think evil exists, and I think the nature of evil tries to dominate nature, and goes against nature. And I see that, like particularly with the transgender, like a man can be a woman and a woman can be a man. I mean, there's nothing really more preposterous than that. Nothing more like offensive to nature. It's like I'm above nature. Like I was born a man, but I can choose to be a woman. It's like you're putting yourself above God. You're putting yourself above nature. And I don't want to. I think there are people that are genuinely transgender. I'm not disparaging the entire community, but it's not so much transgender itself. It's the attitude around it and the belief systems that they're propagating. As far as I'm concerned, are demonic. It's like it's an affront to nature, and ultimately, good luck, because you're not going to defeat nature. Like the force of nature
Yeah.
is much stronger. And this is, and I could go on and on about like AI. It's the same thing. Like the way people talk about AI is it's like some new god that's coming.
Yes.
That's how it's being
Yeah,
positioned.
that's
That's
right.
also, I mean, how many movies do you need to watch? How many stories do you need to watch? If you make something other than God, you're going
Yeah.
to get yourself into a lot of fucking trouble. So that's how I see it, And again, if I just say, well, this is how evolution happens. Like, a tree is, I mean, I'm looking out of my yard. I see trees everywhere, and they little seed and they sprout, and then hundreds of years, and then the tree dies. Right? It's just life cycles, right? Like it's
Yeah.
true for us. It's true for cultures. And when they die, sometimes there's like at least in cultures, there's a lot of chaos and uncertainty and resentment, and frankly, war. And we clearly, as a species, haven't evolved beyond using war as a means of resolving our differences.
Mm. Yeah, you make me laugh, man, because that movie reference is something that I quote all the time. And when we talk about these sorts of things, I always say, "I've seen the movies, man. I know how this works. I know how this ends." And
Yeah,
it's been written about and spoken about for eons.
it's
So,
in the Bible. It's all through Shakespeare, Greek tragedies.
there's nothing new under the sun.
Carl Jung. There's nothing new under the sun. We've all seen this play out before, and so I'm trying to stay detached from it for the most part. I mean, I haven't always, but at this point, I feel like I see it generally for what it is, and
Yeah.
there's really no reason for me to get emotionally involved. So the best thing that I can do right now is just keep my head down and do my work and try to lead men back to their integrity, back to their masculinity, back to their authority, back to some kind of connection with God, whatever that is for
Mm.
them.
Well, can we expand on that? But do you work solely with men now, or do you work with men and women?
I've worked a lot with men and women, but in the last year, I've put all of my focus on working with men.
Hmm.
I think because I'm a somatic practitioner, but essentially a therapist. And when I saw how men on the right in particular were talking about therapy, which I understood because 70-80% of therapists are women,
Hmm.
and most of them have graduated from liberal colleges that are promoting a certain ideology. And if you're a regular guy and maybe you're in the center or you lean a little bit right, you're not going to feel drawn to go to therapy because there's a kind of a demonization of men that's baked in. And when the American Psychiatric or Psychological Association put out that statement a couple of years ago, calling traditional masculinity like toxic, like pathologizing traditional masculinity. I just, a lot of guys are like, fuck therapy. I got a lot out of therapy, right? Like I'm a believer in good therapy. So I just thought that I wanted to try to bring that to that group of men, and I thought that I could be a good bridge for that, particularly after the Andrew Tate interview, because here we have a kind of macho alpha type dude, and he sat down with me, and I think people who watched that were persuaded, at least in some way, that there was some value and utility in the conversation and in my approach to the conversation, that there was something that they learned about him, and there's something that he probably learned about himself, and
Mm.
that information was, it's useful. Now, so my thought was like, how do I get men in and get them more emotionally aware, understand the concepts that I've learned that have been so helpful in my life and have not diminished my power. The opposite, it made me more powerful, getting in touch with my emotions, my pain, my fear, my insecurities, my distortions. Like that hasn't taken away my edge. It's just made me more aware, more powerful, more conscious, more embodied. So there's a version of masculinity that I'm
Mm.
promoting that. And so those are the guys I'm trying to get.
Yep.
And and that's exciting for me, because once you get them in, and once you start having real conversations, they need to have those conversations. They want to have those conversations. Men have pain. Men want to talk about their problems. They can still go to jujitsu class, and they can still have their guns and go out to the gun range and fire their gun. They can do whatever they want to do. It can all be one thing, and that's kind of what I'm going for.
I like it. Have you ever heard of a guy called Tiziano Squerzo? He's originally from Italy, obviously, by his name, but he resides in Australia. He's good mate of mine. He's got he does like what's called family constellations. He's got his business is the language of the soul. I'll introduce you to him. I think you guys will hit it off. He's
Is he on Instagram? Does he have videos where he's sort of facilitating groups?
yes,
Yeah, I think I follow him. What's his name?
Tiziano. So it's Tiziano, Tiziano, but it's
Ferro?
Tiziano
Oh yeah.
Squerzo.
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Sggerso. I'll
Yeah.
connect you two. I think if you guys had a chat, it'd be
Yeah.
amazing. But we had a conversation the other day, and he spoke to exactly what you were saying. He said like men, like brothers need other brothers to
Yeah.
connect with, and women need women. Like they need to support each other in their own sphere of influence. And I guess probably you're the best person to talk to about this, because it seems from my outside perspective that women used to congregate a lot more than what they do. They kind of hate on each other a lot more now, it seems, from the outside. They're very quick to kind of cut each other down. Men tend to want to hang out with mates, but they don't have these conversations in fear of looking weak or vulnerable or, they like lesser than a man. Does that make sense?
Of course. Of course.
So how do you
Yeah.
pull people out of
Mhm.
this, like particularly men? Like how do you pull them out of, say, for example, being like, I don't know, feminized, for example, or their way of life has been conducive to them just becoming, I don't know, fat, sick, stupid, soft. You know what I mean? Like all of
Mhm.
that sort of
Mhm.
that whole Homer Simpson type of
Yeah.
characteristic of or character. You know what I mean?
Well, that's a complicated question. I mean, the first there's a lot of things I could say, but I guess the first thing that comes to mind is like most men are just carrying around a tremendous amount of shame.
Mm,
And what is shame? It's a deep-seated belief that there's something not okay with me. Like there's some part of me that's bad, and I have to hide that from the world. And so I carry these secrets, and I carry that burden. And obviously that is exacerbated by the culture, constantly pointing at men and telling them that they're bad. I think that probably a lot of that is a result of what I think is a kind of epidemic in the culture, which is you have overbearing mothers and absent fathers. So little boys do not grow up with a balanced household where they see actually the father asserting his authority in the dynamic in a healthy way. It's either he's withdrawn or he's tyrannical. And then you see mothers who are because the father is not available to them emotionally, they end up getting a lot of their needs met through the child. So that is actually a very disturbing dynamic for the child, because they feel like they have to subvert their own needs for the mother, and that their job unconsciously is to take care of the mother. So when they go out as adults, that's how they're approaching relationship. It's hard for them to be their authentic selves. They've never seen a version of masculinity that's able to assert their authority, assert themselves, like kind of stand in their power, which is, ironically, is exactly what women want. Women tend to want men who are powerful and kind and loving, obviously, but who have clear boundaries and are willing to hold the container and assert their authority. I mean, if you can't say no to your woman, she's not going to respect you. And the truth is, women test men there. And so, a lot of men I see failing that test over and over and over again. And I think that's why you see a lot of frustrated women right now. So, that's one dynamic that I see a lot of. And obviously there's a selection bias, because a certain kind of person is going to be drawn to me. That was my experience. I think the other thing, though, I saw this recently from another men's coach. He has a community, and he polled the guys in his community, and he asked them, do you care about your woman's feelings? And most of them were like, obviously I care about her feelings. Do you think your woman cares about your feelings? And the vast majority of them said no. Wow. And would you like them to care about your feelings? And obviously the answer was yes. So there is this feeling, whether that's real or not. Do women actually not care about men's feelings? I'm not sure that that's true. I think a lot of women don't understand men. They think they do. I think they think men don't have feelings. There's a lot of women out there. My wife, like, and she's a pretty evolved person. Like, she didn't really understand, like, that men have feelings the way that women have feelings. And obviously they experience, their feelings manifest in a slightly different way than men, but men get hurt. Men get scared. Men have shame. Men have pain. And I think a lot of women don't really get that. And so, men need a place to go to be with other men, so they can understand that they're not the only one. They liberate the shame of these repressed emotions, and so they can see that, oh, okay, that guy feels the same way. Now, facilitating those conversations, I think, takes a lot of skill, but that's what it is that I'm trying to do. And I've seen it over and over and over again, that once you crack that facade and you open it up, guys are longing for it. Like, when I do my 12-week cohorts, it takes a couple of weeks for things to open up, but by the end of 12 weeks, like, the guys are like, I feel like we just got started. Like, you can feel this sadness that it's ending, because of how much they got out of being able to have real, genuine conversations about their pain.
Yeah. I mean, it's a bond and an understanding, and I guess to bring that kind of inner child, it's like maybe the first time they've been seen and heard in their lifetime, right? So it's kind of like all I've ever craved was acknowledgement, and here it is amongst a group of men. So I think to have that belonging, it's like you moving to Mexico and then moving back to Austin, like you have a belonging that I guess on a deeper soul level, you've missed that connection, and
Yeah.
then you're reunited with it. So men would find that. What do you think about, like, the thing that I like about the fact that you're doing what you're doing, and the fact that you're a man doing it, is that you obviously, from my outside perspective, embody what you teach. You are congruent in the values that you preach and your philosophies and things like that, which I can only see from what you promote. Obviously, I don't follow you around. That'd be weird. But it's like, and it's the same with me. Like you don't see the ins and outs of my daily life where I do fall over and fall down and fuck up and make a mess of myself, you know. But I guess when you take it into say perspective, like a male role model, like for me and you, we're not too far apart in age. Like growing up, our male role models of a masculine man was like Conan the Barbarian, you know, Chuck Norris, He-Man. You know what I mean? Like you sort of had all
Yeah.
of the characters that were like that's what it means to be a real man. Whereas these days, you know, we like my kids have like fucking Family Guy and you know Homer Simpson.
Right.
Like you know, like but I guess probably an overarching question is like not everyone can be an MMA fighter
Mm-hmm.
and go and lift weights and be 100
Mm-hmm.
kilos and bench 225 and squat 200 and all that kind of stuff. Do you know what I mean? So I'm not sure if there's a question in that, but I think you get where I'm going with this. Like, how do men sort of find their own balance in what it means to be masculine or what it means to be assertive as a male and finding their feet and expressing themselves in their authentic truth and to their highest version of themselves. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. Everybody is not going to be drawn to the certain kind of versions of masculinity that are being promoted, let's say in the manosphere, where, you know, you got to hit the gym, you got to be a black belt in jujitsu, you got to hold frame and you know, but there's something in that, like there's something to take away from that, from the, you know, let's say Jocko Willink is maybe a healthier example, or Joe Rogan, right? Like that,
Mm,
there's a guy that I think is a pretty good role model, which is extremely disciplined man. He's physically fit. He seems to take responsibility for himself. He's intellectually curious. He's, you know, reasonably vulnerable, and he seems to genuinely care about people, you know, and he's trying to do good. So I think there are. I mean, I think he's a great role model. I'm happy he's out there, and I'm happy that he's popular. Um, but yes, there, you know, the issue is like compartmentalizing masculinity, and if you don't, you know, fall into this category, then you aren't a real man. I don't think that's true at all. Really,
mm,
to me, what it's about is, you know, taking responsibility for your life, not blaming, not judging, not getting caught in resentment, understanding that, you know, you on some level make manifest your world, your reality, and it's through your thoughts and beliefs and decisions that that happens. I think that's really the number one attribute that men need to hold inside themselves, is a deep sense of self-responsibility. Like it always comes back to me. If there's a problem in my relationship, if there's a problem in my life, if there's a problem in the company that I'm working in, I have to be willing to look at myself first. Like where can I improve? How am I not showing up? Which takes a tremendous amount of humility, and I think self-responsibility and humility go hand in hand. I think you should be a man of your word, and I think that's also very important. And I do believe that it is the responsibility of men to, in whatever fashion that is for you, make yourself as strong as you possibly can. And I
mm.
don't just mean physically strong. I think it's important to have a certain degree of physical fitness, just because it you know, feeling strong, as you know, it does something to your psychology. You meet the world in a
Absolutely.
different place. And again, it doesn't mean you have to, you know, be able to deadlift 500 pounds, but it also might be a kind of intellectual strength, right? Where you have a certain discipline, where you're reading whatever books that are curious to you, but that there's something that you're doing in your life that requires discipline, and that you're showing up for that, and that you understand that you have responsibilities as a man in terms of leadership, and that you have to take that on. Like it's a burden to be a man, right? I mean, women have their own burdens. And again, I'm not trying to compare here. Like I believe that fundamentally in nature, men and women are equal. We each have our own cross to bear. But I think it's like for men to bear that cross willingly and with integrity. And there's no way out of that. Like you can't escape that kind of, I don't even want to call it suffering, but it's like, but that's where your salvation lies, is taking on responsibility, taking on leadership. That's where you're going to get this deep sense of fulfillment, and it's really it's a spiritual quest, and I think that my mantra is always, man follows God, woman follows man. And so it's like the prayer, like thy will be done, like God's will be done, not my will. Right. And again, if we go back, as we were saying, whether it's Shakespeare or the Greek tragedies, we know that, hubris, pride comes before the fall. And so we have to be vigilant about that. And the only way to be vigilant about that is to serve something greater than yourself. And I think all of those attributes are really what it means to be a good man in the world.
Mm. Yeah, I loved everything you just said, actually. When I've heard you speak online in the past, one of the things that has really grabbed my attention is embracing this sort of dark side of a man. And I think there's parts of that with enough time we can talk to is embracing those sort of maybe darker thoughts in terms of
Mm-hmm.
deeper emotions, darker thoughts that prop up for you as a man. And then the other side of it is that I guess in a relationship, so particularly, for example, in the bedroom, taking on that sort of dark, I don't know if I could call it darker side, but you know where I'm
Mm-hmm.
leading to this more sort of, dominant, um, I guess, way or intensity. I'm sort
Yeah.
of fumbling with words and stuff like that, but you know where I'm going with this, right? So, what are your sort of thoughts on that when you're working with men in terms of expressing their dominance, like in relationship, in intimacy, and sort of embracing some of those sort of I don't know, animalistic kind of
Yeah.
qualities, that come through?
Well, we're primates. We
Yes.
have drives, we have instincts. I mean, there is a conqueror in most men. I don't want to say all men, but there's a part of us that does want to dominate, that wants to take, that wants to conquer. That's innate. That is a feature, not a bug. Obviously, that can be controlled entirely by the ego, and it has its time and place. But young men, particularly, like when they're starting out in the world, like they want to make their mark in the world. They want to start a company. They want to. For me, it was I want to go to Hollywood and conquer that. Like I want to conquer that domain. Like that there's something that's built in there. So I think it's allowing it to be there, to exist, to not shame it, and to follow it and let it exercise itself in a healthy way. Which I think that's why it's important that we're connected to some higher self, so that it's integrated with that. In terms of the darkness, the way that I see, the shadow, or what my work calls the lower self, which is something different entirely. That's our unconscious negative intention, which is really it's the defense against our pain. And the way I frame it for guys is like you have a monster that lives inside you, and it's vindictive, it's punishing, it wants to get revenge, it wants to create separation, it wants to destroy.
Mm.
Which is different than conquering. Like there's the destroyer in all of us. It's usually fueled by pain and resentment. And the only way to make a peace with that, or to get that monster under control, is to make friends with that monster. You have to get to know the monster. You have to look the monster square in the eye. Like you can't try to avoid it or overcome it or disown it, because it's a part of you and you're never going to escape it. I mean, women have this too. This is not exclusive just to men.
Mhm.
And so I do a lot of work with guys, really, really trying to help them first excavate and accept and that part of them, and because it's scary. People don't want to admit to their dark impulses, to
Mhm.
their cruelty. But it particularly comes out, in relationships. I mean, there's nobody we can be more cruel to, usually, than our partner. And maybe it's not overt. Maybe you're not saying mean things, but the example I always use is like, if you feel hurt in your relationship, usually what men will do is withdraw, and they'll withdraw in some way. Like, I have to get my bearings. I have to go, into the cave and figure this out for myself. But there's another darker part that's saying, I'm actually withdrawing my love to punish.
Mm.
And when you present that to a guy, most of them can see that. They're like, actually, yeah, I want her to feel the pain that I'm feeling. I want her to, like, which is a kind of punishment. It's a kind of revenge. And there's something dark in that. And there's something that says, I refuse to be vulnerable. Like, I'm not going to feel my pain. I'm actually going to inflict it back on her.
Mhm.
And that's universal. Like, there's no relationship that's not happening in.
Yeah.
And you want to be able to bring that kind of darkness into your consciousness and accept it and understand it for what it really is. As I said, it's really just a defense against our pain. But we have to know it, accept it, and even in some cases, like love. How do you defeat the demon? You love the demon. It's love that will defeat the demon. So we have to integrate it into ourselves, not banish it. And that can be a tricky process, but there's a lot of energy that monster has. And I would prefer to have that monster's energy used in service of creation and building and growth, as opposed to destruction. So that's going to require me to really, like, come into relationship with that part of me and convince that monster that he no longer needs to protect my heart from pain or from humiliation or whatever the image is that we have, that I'm an adult man and that I'm in control. Because a lot of men, it's like their monster is unconsciously really in control of their lives, and until they make it conscious, like they're
Mm.
not really free.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And then I guess my own experience is that you're afraid to let it out in fear of what might transpire, and then you've got this sort of uncontrollable monster that you don't want
Yeah.
to let out of its cage, right? Um, and then in the absence of understanding or embracing that darker side of you is just a scared little boy of what may become, and so you kind of diminish your own potential. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but it's kind of like you stifle your own personal growth, and the you put a limitation on exactly what you can do. It seems to kind of, like, I don't know, transfer through wherever: business, career, marriage,
Yeah.
fitness, like your own, I guess, self-perception, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, the main target of the monster inside us is ourselves. Most of us have a really intense, tyrannical, negative self-talk, and we would never speak to our friends the way that we speak to ourselves. And that's most people. Like, we can be incredibly cruel to ourselves, shaming, judging, relentless. And so if you don't get a handle on what that is, like, that is going to continue to repeat. So, like I always say, it's like, yes, we should be concerned about the energy, like, that monster might unleash on the world. Like, I understand that fear. We don't want to be cruel and punishing and vindictive towards those that we love. but the person you should be most concerned about is yourself. Like when you turn that energy against yourself, because that is really at the source of the impulse to self-sabotage. That's why men, I think, get caught in these addiction cycles, whether it's porn or alcohol or weed or scrolling, right? It's just like it's that part of them that is constantly telling them that they're not enough or they're too much or
Mm.
they're no good, and there's no point in taking risks. There's that force that wants to keep us down. It's some in religious terms they would call that the devil inside,
Yeah.
and that at a certain point we have to confront the devil inside.
Yeah, look, I think the speaking from my own experience and some of the things that I've been working on lately is I guess I don't know if the word is like delineation between why I feel I need to do the things that I do based on whatever demons are inside and how I express that, or is it influenced by something outside of me, right? So, say for example, if I wanted to tame this sort of feeling of like you said before, destruction and not just conquering, destruction. Like, so how do I tame that? Or do I do? Is that why I do mixed martial arts? Is because I want to be able to fuck shit up, you know? Is this why
Maybe.
I've gravitated towards weights? Because like to be dominant and in lift heavy and feel strong and all the rest of it. In terms of relationship, like in the bedroom, for example, like is when I've explored that part of it, there's a part of me that says, do I do these things because of this um, part of me that is this mammalian brain or whatever you want to call it, this part of me that's just part of my nature, or is it
Yeah.
because I've seen it in pornography? Like it's like
Right.
why am I doing the things that I'm doing? That's, I mean, a complete other podcast, I guess. But these are the challenges that I've been at least putting to my own mind to kind of figure out like why am I doing the things that I'm doing, and
I think
and
it's impossible to know, to be honest. Like I don't I
mm,
don't think we can really get to the root of all of the influences that we have been we imparted on us, like whether it's the things that happened to us in our childhood,
yeah,
whether it's the things the media that we consumed when we were little boys, whether it's the pornography we watched. Like I think it's almost impossible to get ourselves out of the programming. But I don't think that's a thing. Like there's no escaping the matrix. That's not a thing, right?
really,
Like we live inside the matrix. All you can do is be aware that you're in the matrix,
mm,
right? And I think bring as much consciousness as you can and just be as curious about it as you can. I mean, what you're doing is essentially asking yourself the question. But the real game is presence, right? Like if I can be present with what's going on in me and I can create a little separation between me and the impulse, me and the thought, me and the desire, like that I'm able to observe it simultaneously while it's happening. That awareness actually creates safety for ourselves and for those around us. So I can bring, my aggression out, like, or let's say the dominant part of me in the bedroom, which, we know that most women enjoy, right? Like feeling the dominant part of the man. But they don't enjoy it when the man is not present with it, when it's like there's something shadowy in there.
mm,
Um, and so really the game is just like becoming as conscious as we can about what's happening inside us and being humble to it without the judgment. And that it's sort of the contradiction in the work that I do, which is you can't change until you accept yourself exactly as you are. So if you're coming to be fixed, you're already, you've put yourself sort of behind the eight ball. Like you've set yourself up because
mm,
you're coming with this idea that there's something deficient about me. And when you believe that there's something deficient or something wrong with you, which is really just shame, you're always going to act out in a way to confirm that story. So
Agreed.
you have to kind of come with an acceptance of your humanity, knowing that we're light and dark, that the things about yourself that you do not know and that you probably will never know. Are you really going to know yourself fully in this lifetime? Probably not. I don't think we're capable of. I don't think it's set up that way, which is
Mm,
why I think faith is so important, and humility. So, it's just really, the game is just awareness and acceptance. Like, oh, there's that part of me that wants to dominate. Oh, there's that part of me that wants to kill. Oh, my wife just said this thing to me, and I feel this impulse to just like, fuck you. You know
mhm,
what I mean? And it's like, when I'm able to observe the impulse, that impulse has less um, power over me, and I'm less likely to react from it. And I think that really is the ultimate power. We're not getting away from it. Like, we can't escape this aspect of us. Like, and so it's just that subtle shift in awareness and acceptance. And I think that's what creates safety in a man. And I think that's what makes a man trustable and safe for the world and for women. It's the guy who's slightly delusional, or you kind of, they're not all the way there. You can't quite feel it, or they're rationalizing all the time
mhm,
their behavior. That's the guy that's not really trustable, because you can see there's something going on underneath the surface that they're not really aware of.
mhm.
And so it's just the humility to be able to look at ourselves and give ourselves a lot of grace and forgiveness, and understanding, and that's really, that's to me, it's that humility, and that the courage to do that is really, I think, the hallmark of a powerful man.
Well put. Mate, I could talk to you forever about this stuff, but I know you got to jet pretty soon. So,
Yeah,
um, hey, it's been great to talk to you. You're so easy to chat with, man. It's like a friend that I've had for 20 years. So I appreciate your time and your expertise. I really love having these conversations, and I look forward to doing it again if you're
for sure.
now. Where can people find you if they've been inspired by anything that you've said?
Yeah, you go to my website. It's davidsutcliffe.com, and you can find all the information there. If you're in the United States, I do about quarterly workshops, men's workshops, weekend retreats in Austin, Texas.
Hmm.
And I'm always running various cohort trainings, relationship mastery, emotional mastery, where I'm, teaching some of these concepts. I run small group cohorts. It's not like you're with 30 guys. Like, it's personal, and it's deep work. So, but it's all there. I have all the offerings that I'm doing, and I still do a little bit of one-on-one coaching. So if you want that, you can also find that there.
Yeah, amazing. All right, man. You're a great guy. Thanks for chatting with me today, and I look forward to circling back soon. Okay.
Appreciate you, Adrian. Thank you, man.
All right, man. Take care.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye.